Hello everyone, with you, the History of Pi channel. Today I'm going to tell you a story that really surprised me. I found it on the best forum in stolen history. Everyone who is interested in alternative history has heard the version that somewhere at the turn of the 18th-19th centuries, there was a global catastrophe. Traces of this catastrophe can be observed all over the world. These are the filled-up first floors of buildings in all capitals of the world, and not only in capitals. The most striking example of a filled-up building is the Polytechnic in Moscow. It is filled up to 8 meters. So in the 18th century, some kind of catastrophic event occurred all over the world, maybe a flood, or a huge asteroid crashed into the Earth. It doesn't even really matter what it was. It is important that there is no mention of this disaster in the official history, and people do not know anything about it. It is very strange. There are traces of a great catastrophe, but there are no memories of contemporaries of this event. It's as if all of humanity's memory has been erased. So, around the beginning of 1840s, a very interesting political movement appeared in America. It was called the Native American Party. Its second name in the 40s was the Indian Party. Now, if you accidentally hear the Indian Party of the United States, then immediately we imagine half-naked people with feathers on their heads. There is also a party of Native Americans. You might think that there were Native Americans there, and as we know they were Indians. So, there were no Indians in our understanding in the Indian Party. It included ordinary white people of European appearance. This party conducted very aggressive propaganda against Catholics and all immigrants in general. Representatives of this party organized pogroms and set fire to Catholic churches. I would still understand if it was done by Indians. Indians were oppressed and destroyed all the time in America, so they could be aggressively opposed to immigrants. But this party consisted of white people who did not wear feather hats. So, these white people set fire to churches, arranged bloody riots in American cities. Here are some examples. Riots in Wisville in 1855th year, in Baltimore in 1856th year, in Bath in 1854th year, burned the Catholic Church. One of the largest riots occurred in Philadelphia in 1844th year. The government had to bring in more than 1,000 militias to quell the riot. Let's take a look at the engraving depicting these riots. On the left, the engraving depicts the state militia, and on the right, the Native American Party or the Indian Party. And what do we get? And it turns out that the hussars in the form of a sample of 1812th year are putting things in order in an American city. What are the hussars doing in America? And why are they called the state militia here? A very strange engraving. So, this aggressive party wins elections in many American cities, and the number of its members in 1854th year reaches 1 million people, and after that, this party has a generally mysterious name. From a party of Native Americans, it turns into a party of I don't know anything. Just imagine in our time, there is a party called We Don't Know Anything. That's who's going to vote for her. How will they campaign? Just talk? Our party is led by specialists who know nothing. But in America, a party with this name gathered more than 1 million people. Let's recall the second name of this party, the Indian Party. I wonder why Indian? Or do we not know something about real Indians? For me, an Indian is a person who lives in a wigwam and wears feathers on his head. But if you start to be interested in the facts, then in America not all Indians lived in wigwams. It turns out that many had their own mansions. Here, for example, is a mansion that belonged to an Indian man from the Cherokee tribe, Greenwood La Flora. But this house, built in 1821, belonged to a judge of the Cherokee Supreme Court and the brother of the chief. But that's not all. Here's another wonderful story from the life of the Indians. In the winter of 1847, the inhabitants of Ireland suffered from terrible hunger. Meanwhile, representatives of the Choctaw Indians, one of the 5 great southern tribes of the United States, met in a small town called Scouville. There, members of the tribe discussed the life of the Irish poor. It was proposed to raise money to help the hungry in Ireland. As a result, we collected $170, which at the current exchange rate is equal to 5,000 US dollars. It probably happened like this, the tribe leader did not say. My Indian comrades, I have gathered you here in order to tell you that in Ireland, the one that is very close on the neighboring continent, a terrible famine has come, and we must help our Irish comrades in any way we can. Don't you find this story strange? After all, the Europeans drove the Indians from their lands, killed the Indians, burned their villages, and after all this, the Indian tribe collects money for the hungry in Ireland. This story of Indians collecting money has one explanation for me. The Indians were not savages, they were the real inhabitants of antediluvian America. They had a European appearance, lived in normal houses and mansions. It was then that new emigrants from Europe began to expel them from their cities and their homes. The Indian Party is the party of white people who lived in America before the Europeans. It's just that in America, they somehow cleaned up their memory. And people who began to wonder where I came from. What was here before me? Who built and burned these huge cities? These people began to unite under one slogan, they know nothing. And under this slogan, they began to burn Catholic churches and organize riots in cities. I don't see any other reason for joining a party with such a strange name. And what's more interesting, the I Don't Know Anything party broke up in 1860, and soon the Civil War in the United States began. I think the reason is the formation of a huge political party with such a strange name, I Don't Know Anything. These are the consequences of a large psychophysical experiment on the territory of America. People had their memories erased somehow. Here's a look at these tourists on the ruins of American cities. You look at these photos, and you realize they don't know anything. That's it, everyone watch my channel.